And hello, my name is Martin, and what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be fixing an issue that was happening with the way that we were making the navigations work before. So what was happening before is we would drop an enemy here, we would drop an enemy there. They could even be different enemies so that they were respawning in different areas, but they were still being affected by the same thing. So when I, as the player, would walk into this area, things that were over here would start reacting to me. Now, that may be okay in some situations, but it may not be what you want in all situations. You may want these enemies to only react to you when you walk into this square, regardless of whether the null values are there. Because remember that the null values, the only thing they were doing was making it to where nobody would react to us. So if we were in this gray area down here, we were not actually on one of the two maps. They would not react to us, but neither one of them would react to us. And if we walked into one of these, both of them would react to us. Obviously, these could not come over and attack us, but because of the null value, but they were still reacting. Now, the other thing that we may also want to end up doing is having an area where maybe there is a shared responsibility, right? Where having the null mesh the null mesh. That's so difficult for saying. The null mesh navigator was in the middle, so that would have actually have stopped them from being able to share a space. So let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to be able to get this done and what we need to do to the code. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I got rid of all the extra versions of everything else, and I'm just going to go ahead and redo those. The first thing that I do want to do though is so I'm in my enemies. I'm in H missile, which is the one that's the only one that we have moving right now. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to new folder, and I'm going to say that this is area 1. Okay, so then that way everything that is in this folder I know. So because eventually what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a lot of H missiles, and we're going to have a lot of H missile AIs, and we can designate zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 on the back end, but you know, it's going to be so much easier if these things are put in a way that allows us to know that, hey, these were the ones for area 1, these are the ones for area 2, these are the ones for area 3. So I'm going to go ahead and create another one, and I'm going to call this one area 2, and then I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to call this one share, or share area. You know what, I could just call it area 3, and then I'll underscore it with a share. Okay, so then that way I know these are enemies. This is going to be the homing missiles for area 1, homing missiles for area 2, homing missiles for area 3, which is going to be shared, and then these are the two AIs. So right now what I want to do is I obviously need to make copies of these. So let's go ahead and hold Shift and select both of those. And the first one I'm going to drop into area 1. Again, it's asking me, do I want to move them here? Do I want to copy them here? In this case, I want to go ahead and hit copy because I want a copy of those in there. Okay, so let's do the same thing again, and we're going to grab and drag those into area 2. We want to copy in there, and let's go ahead and grab these, and with the last set I'm just going to say move them in there because I'm done making copies. Okay, so now I should have H missiles for each one. The only problem right now is that they've all got the same name. So let's go in there and let's give these guys different names, so then that way when we move and create the AIs, they will be two different characters. So the first one, I'm going to come in and right click, and let's see where we can change the name. There we go, and I'm going to go to the end, and I'm just going to type in Z1 or area 1. Let me underscore that with an A1. Okay, so this will now be H missile A1, so I know that it's part of area 1. Let's do the same thing for the AI. Let's go area 1, and let's keep everything looking the same. Okay, and go ahead and do this for all of the other ones. So with the second set, we're going to call this underscore A2.
2. A3. Oops, I've mislabeled that one.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to check to see that AI1 missile is indeed attached to H missile AI1, since this is a working project and these things have been labeled different things. I want to make sure that this is indeed the correct label for this. So let me double click and go in there, and let's go to self, and then let's go over to the details panel and see that we are indeed on H missile AI A1. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and hit compile and save, and everything should be okay for here. Now what we want to do now is we want to go to the AI, so let's go to H missile AI A1. Okay, and you'll see that mine looks a little bit different. What we're going to do is I'm going to explain what I did in the first one, show you the example of it working, and then we're going to set up the one for area 2 together. Okay, so basically what's happening is the same thing when the game starts, when the player begins the game. It's going to look for a function or a custom event called follow player. So this is the follow player. It's going to be doing this every 1 second, and it's going to be set up on looping so it does it continuously. Now before this right here, the follow player custom event was going directly to the AI. So anytime the player got onto the green area, onto the navigational mesh, they went, right? They went towards the player. Now, in the examples that we saw in the last tutorial, what we saw was that we had created the navigational null areas, which basically negated the fact that there was an area there for them to detect. So that's how we were avoiding detection. This time, what we're going to do is set up a branch condition, which is an if this is true, then do this. If this is false, then do this, right? Now, in our case, we don't need it to be anything for false. There will be other conditions later, and for other, for other things that you might need to have a false condition set up. The other thing we might do with the false is we might tell it to stop moving, right? So if it was moving, we might tell it to stop moving. We'll see what we can do about that. But for right now, I just want to show you what I've got. So from there, we have the condition itself. So that condition is coming off of an AND. So this is an AND Boolean. And then we have a range because we want to define the area of that white square that we're working in. So, we want to define this area right here as the first area. Which is what I've done here. I've created minimum and maximums for that. So we saw this again when we were creating the respawning, when we created a random range. Now this is, instead of it being a random range, it says in range. So slightly different float, almost exactly the same idea, except for that now it's going to be looking for a value between those two. From there, what we did was we had to get the player's location, right? So wherever the player is going to be in the world, so get player, get its location, the player's location, break that down into XY axes, then make sure that that is the value that it is checking against its range. If this value is within this range, it's going to give us a yes and a true. So that true is going to be coming and creating the AI move to. Which is what we've already seen. Okay, so let's go and test this real quick and see that it works. Now the other thing is that I feel like for whatever reason I deleted my nav mesh. So if you have not created one, go ahead and create and put one out on the floor. If we have already, don't worry about this. I've been playing around a lot with this project, so things may have changed for me. Okay, so what I wanted to do with the nav mesh was just ensure that we had the whole area filled out. All of this, let me make sure I'm not going too far over. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so before what we had was we had a null mesh area that was right here and right here, right, another one here, another one there, and another one in the back, and that basically allowed my character to walk around without being detected within these spaces. So then that way, even though we were technically inside the nav mesh area, we were in the null, so nothing was happening to us until we walked into the green area. So now let's put one of these. I'm going to put it in the area that it's been told that it can search for, and let's push play. Now remember that my character, as soon as he walks out of these doors, he's going to be inside the nav mesh, and we're going to see that this character does not react to us until we walk into area 1. So let's go ahead and push play. Okay, so I've walked into area 1, it came after me. It should regen here in a second. There's the regen, and notice that it's not coming after me. I can walk into area 2, and remember that last time in area 2, it was coming after us, right? So now, let's walk into area 1, but let's say back here, and now it's coming towards us. Okay, so this mesh is now being controlled and kept in an area. Not that it can't go outside that area, because obviously we've seen that. We see that it is coming all the way outside the area to attack us. Now we could set up another null mesh area right here and stop that from happening, or we could come to the false condition, set up basically something that's the same. You know what? If this is false, if it's false, we would say stop movement. Okay. Let's hit compile and save, and let's see if that actually takes place. Okay, so we're outside the area of 1. We're going to walk into it. It starts moving. We walk out. It stops. Beautiful. Okay, so let's do this now for the second set over here on the other side, and I'll show you exactly how we walked through and we were able to create this wonderful effect. Okay, so remember that in area 2 we have the old versions of these. So again, I just want to double click on this, go to A1, and make sure that it is indeed listening to the right controller. So HMissile AI A2, that's the one that we're going to be working on now. So I'm going to hit compile and save, and for the rest of that, that should be okay. I'm actually going to take that nav mesh invoker off because that is from something else, from a tutorial that we have not discussed yet. Alright, so basically everything's the same, we're fine. Alright, so we can go ahead and close down the blueprint for that, and now let's open up the AI. Okay, so once you open yours up, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see the event begin play, which goes to our timer, and then we've got the follow player, which is listening to the timer, which is then creating the AI move towards, right? So it's grabbing a controlled pawn and it's sending it towards the player. What we need to do is we need to create an if condition. The if condition is going to be based off a vector, and what a vector is a location on the screen, right? So where, a specific point on the screen. And we need to figure out not only the X value, but the Y value for our main player, so then that way, because we could hit the X value at any point and then it wouldn't define it as an area. It's only defining it as a line, right? If you only have one. So you have to have both an X and a Y and have a maximum and a minimum value for each one, so then that way you can define a range. You need 4 points, 4 vectors, 2X, 2Y to be able to define a range. So the first thing we need to do is wait for the autosave, and then once that's done, let's click off of the execute from the event and type in if. Now what we're doing here is creating what's called a branch, and if we look at the branch, we'll see that the branch has a true, it has a false. So if something is true, it's going to, if the condition creates a true statement, then this is what's going to happen. If the condition creates a false statement, then this is what's going to happen, right? So right now, if I left this and pushed play, the condition right now by default is set to true because we have this checked. And as soon as we got onto the green, the character would come, or the the H missile would start following us. Now, if we had that to false and we did this, we would have the same condition because we're saying the branch condition is false, and if it's false, then move to the AI. So it's not that the AI is moving or not moving because it's true or because it's false. It's based off of what the condition is saying and what is attached to either the true or the false statement of that condition, right? So again, if I do this and I connect true to AI and undo this, say break that one. Let's go ahead and hit compile and save. And I'm going to move one of these onto the floor. And I'm actually going to get rid of the other one so that we have the correct one there. And we're going to push play. And you're going to see that it's going to come straight for me. It's coming straight for me. Okay. So now let's do the same thing. But we're going to have this as a false. Okay, so now we're saying if it sees us and the condition, if this is true, do nothing. If this is false, move towards us, right? So now let's see, compile, save. Let's close here, let's push play. Okay, you'll see that it's not moving towards us because we are saying that the condition is still true, and since we don't have anything on true, it's not moving towards us. Now let's make the condition false. Let's make it a false reading. So now the Boolean is telling us false. False is to move towards us. Let's hit compile, and let's see what happens. It should now move towards us. Okay, there you go. So again, be aware of what you're setting up as a true or a false for this, whether this is going to give us a true condition or whether it's going to give us a false condition, and then what you are attaching to this. Now, for me, I want to go ahead and leave this on true because what we're going to be doing is setting up a true condition. We're going to say if the player character is within this range, then move towards us, okay? And later we'll actually set, like we did earlier, we'll set something up to the false condition for this. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up an AND Boolean. So type in AND space BOOL, and that'll be enough to be able to see this one right here that says AND Boolean. Don't get the one that says NAND. We want AND. Okay, so what this is basically going to say is that if this condition, what we attach to this one is true, and this one is true, then move. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to create a an in range. Oops, I cannot spell. In range float. Okay, and now what this is doing is it's basically saying if the value in this box is between the minimum and the maximum values that we have placed in here, return this as true. And remember that if this is true, it's going to move towards our player character. So the first thing we need to do is figure out these two values there, and then, so actually let's go ahead and do that now. So remember to do this, we grab an object, we put it out on the floor, and let me grab this guy. Okay, so I've got the point right here. I've got my values there. And if we're going to do it, let's go ahead and do both of these at the same time so we get both the X and the Y values. So I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to hit Control C, Control V. Okay, so the top one is going to be my X's and the bottom one are going to be my Y's. So I'm looking at the values. The first value that I have is for the x is going to be negative 0.24. And the first y value that I have is going to be 2280. Okay, let's grab the x vertices, hold shift on your keyboard, scroll up or down depending on where you were. The new x value is going to be negative 5283. And let's just make sure that the negative is in the front, and it wasn't, so we have to make sure that they are correct. And the y value stayed the same because we didn't change the y-axis. So let's grab the y-axis, hold shift, drag over to the other end, find where your point is, and this is now going to be 281. All right. Now, when I look at these numbers, everything seems okay except for that it's determining this thing on a base of a range. So if you're saying that the minimum, and let me do it with the y because these are whole numbers and they're not negatives. The maximum value, whoops, and that actually needs to be, okay, this is kind of upside down. I need the smaller of the two numbers to be in the min, and I need the bigger of the two numbers to be in the max. And remember that if they're positive numbers, if they're whole numbers, not negative numbers, this is going to be the way we would think. Smaller number here, bigger number there. So I actually need to flip these two. So let's make the top one, I'm going to hit Control A, Control C. We'll make this 281, and then I'll put the number that was in the other one down there, and then check to make sure that there are no other numbers. Okay. So now the max value, or the minimum value is 281, and the maximum value is 2,281, or 2,280. Now up here, the order should be different, so the bigger number should be at the top, and the smaller number should be down here. And the reason why is because these are negatives. So in a range, this would be negative 5,000 is less than negative 1,000. And if you're confused about that, think money. Right? If I owe $5,000, that's a lot more than owing $1,000, right? Even though the number is smaller. Control C, we'll delete that one. We'll type in 020. And up here we will create now, we'll paste the other number in. And let's paste the other number in. Okay, and now that those have taken, wonderful. So now we have the range that the character, or that this will be looking for. So let's go ahead and expand that out so we can see more of the code. And now what we need to do is we need to get where the player is, because we need to attach the player's x and y values to here and to here, so the x and y respectively. So first thing we need to do is get player character. So this is you, the first person player. From there we need to get world location. Remember, if you don't find the one that we're looking for, hit the context sensitive, and there's that. And then from there we're going to need to break this out. Now here's the thing. We should be able to connect those twos, but if we try to connect a yellow one to a green one, it doesn't let us. Okay. Now the yellow one is a vector. It means a location, so that makes sense. We're saying player character, get a component, which is the blue. That becomes the target, so it's looking for the root component, which becomes the target, and wherever that root component is inside the world, it's going to give us back a x, y, and z value. So right here you can see return value vector, and that should give us x, y, and z. But up here, these are floats. This is a value as a float. So we need to now convert a vector into a float. Okay? And the way we're going to do this, the easier way to do it, is to pull off a value, pull off of the float, and type in vector. Oh, you know why I'm not finding it? Because I don't have this. Let's click on that. That shortens up the list of the stuff that I can see, and now I clearly see one that there's called break vector 2D, so it's going to break it into an XY axis. And that's almost what I'm looking for. Yep, that is exactly what I'm looking for. All right, so one more time, let me show you what I did. I came off a value. Whoops, I didn't move value. I clicked and dragged off a value, typed in vector. I need to have case sensitive on. And if I scroll down to, I guess I could do it like this, where it's math. So there's a couple of different ones, so make sure you get the right one. Let's unclick, click again there. Let's type in vector. Let's make sure that content sensitive is correct. And if we go up to the top, we have break vector underneath math. Let's do that. And you see that that's yellow, that one's yellow, so they should connect directly to each other. And you can see now that it is breaking this up. It's going to break up the value into a float, and it's going to give us that float as X, Y, and Z. So let's now plug the Y value into there. And if you needed to be, more than an area, if it needed to be a volume, you could connect the Z to the in float range, and then you could actually add another pin to this, and you would be able to connect the third value to this one. Since we don't need it right now, I'm going to remove that pin, and we'll do that in a later tutorial. Okay, so let's look at the code real quick and see what it's saying. When the thing starts, look at this event, do it every once a second, and continue to keep doing it. If this event is what this event is looking for is for this condition to be true. If this condition is true, then move towards the player. So the only thing I think we did that I kind of messed up on just now is I measured out the area for area 1 and not for area 2. So the min and the max are okay, so the min and the max on the X is probably going to stay the same. The one that we're going to need to change are going to be the Y values because it's moving. This is the part of the thing that's changing. These two are actually the same. So the value that I'm getting for the first one, and this is probably going to be the larger of the two numbers. Yep, because it gets smaller as it goes that way. So let's make it, I believe it was 78. So I'm going to put the min at, or no, the max is going to be 78. Okay, and let's hold shift and go this way. There we are. And the new Y is going to be negative, say negative 1900. We'll just add it as 1900. Okay, so we now have the new X value. So, the two Y values and the X value stayed the same. So let's hit compile and save. And again, we're making sure that anything that is a negative number stays up on the top, which is the minimum. And if it's a positive number, then make sure that the positive number is down there. If they're both negatives, make sure that the smaller of the two negatives is on top. Okay, so with that, we should be able to do this. Let's go ahead and hit play. Or save for everything. I'm going to close. Let's open up this one, and let's put a couple of these out on the floor. Okay, and since I'm not sure which one this one is, I'm just going to hit delete. And the H2s I'm going to put out here. And you know what? I'm thinking one more thing before I actually do this. I need to check to see what the where they're going to spawn, because these are copies of the other ones, so they may be spawning in slightly different places. So since I have those other two so I've already been able to define this range. So what I'm going to do is go double click into the AI. I'm going to grab these two, hit Control C, go over here and hit Control V. Now I don't want to replace them because remember these are different. Obviously you can see that they're different. These are in range and the ones over here are the float range. But because this is X and that's X and this is Y and that's Y, all I have to do now is come into the numbers and go Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. And then I can delete those two. Okay, so now we're absolutely sure that when this thing respawns, it's going to respawn into the correct area. And then the other thing I want to check with the respawn is that we're respawning the correct missile. And you'll see right now we've got this going to A3, which is not the right one. This one needs to be A2. So when it comes back, it's going to be the same missile, right? It's going to have all the same information location-wise. Yeah, Z we want to keep where it is. Okay, fantastic. So now that we've got that, let's hit compile and save. Let's hit compile and save. I don't think we need to, but let's do it anyways. It's good practice. Hit play. And the area 2s I'm going to drop over here. And once I have one, I can just alt click and drag. Okay, so we have 5 there. I'm going to go back to area 1. Let's grab the area 1. Let's drop one on the floor. Let's bring it up a little bit. Okay. And then from there, let's create 5 on that side. Okay, so theoretically what we've done is area 1 is going to be filled with area 1 and they're going to respawn inside of area 1, and I'm actually just going to double check and make sure that I'm actually respawning the correct one, and I am. Yes, okay, good. So they should be respawning in area 1, and area 2 should respond in area 2, and things that are in area 1 will only react to me if I walk into area 1, and things in area 2 will only react to me if I walk into area 2. So let's see if this now is what's happening. Okay, so I'm definitely inside the mesh. Nothing is coming after me. Let me go into area 1. Area 1 definitely comes and attacks me. Let's see if they respawn in area 1 randomly. They do. Let's go into area 2. Area 2 comes and it attacks me. I think the floats on those are a little bit slower. Let's wait for them to repopulate. Okay, so we got all 5 of them back. And you'll see that none of the ones on area 1 moved and none of the ones in area 2 moved. So if I come over here, area 1 is moving. Area 2 has not moved yet. Okay. Now the only other thing that we can do to this is just like with the first ones where we came in and we got them to stop. Area 2 I think does not have that yet. You see that they continue to keep coming after me even after. So once they've been engaged, they don't have a stop. Okay, so what we want to do is let's go back to the HM missile for number 2. So go to area 2's folder. Let's go to area 2, and we want to go and look for the one that has the if condition. So that's going to be in the AI. So AI for 2. Let's close both of those, and we need H missile AI underscore A2. So it's the second area. And here underneath the false condition, we should be able to click and drag out and type in stop. And underneath navigation, say stop movement, and self is reflective to the H missile, so anything being controlled by the H missile. So again, if our character is in this area, it's giving us a true condition. It's going to come after us. If the character is not in this condition, then it's going to be giving us the false, which is going to make it stop moving. So let's hit compile and save. And let's see now if this happens to the ones in area 2. I walk in, they start to move. I walk out of the area, they now stop. Okay, so wonderful. So now we've got very much of the same effect that we did earlier from the previous tutorial. The only thing is that we're not using the null meshes anymore. We've actually written everything into the code for the individual, for the enemies. We've seen that if we want different areas, we need to have different enemy classes, right? So for example, we have the H missiles for Area 1, the H missiles for Area 2, and the H missiles for Area 3. And really with Area 3, the thing about it being shared is that this could then be a unique area for the same thing. So instead of defining Area 1 and Area 2, I would put in the definition for Area 3, and then anything that is Area 3 would go in there, and it would be able to walk back and forth between these two meshes as long as it's within the area that we have told it that it can go, right? So this could be, you know, a smaller area. It could be equal to the other area. So, you know, if I wanted to, let's see if I could click on this and let's make this a slightly bigger area.
And then maybe I can grab that. Let's put that here. Okay.
So all I have to do now is create a third class of these, define the area as what is the whole area, right? And anyone that is on the floor that is level 3, as soon as I get into that area, it would start working. Now, I'm not going to do that in this video. I think you guys get the idea because it's exactly the same code. All you're doing is you're defining a third area, which is the size of the other two areas. So things that are Area 1 will stay in Area 1. Things that are Area 2 will stay in Area 2. They won't be affected by one. The other ones won't be affected by the other. But Area 3 will actually be affected by both because you're going to define an area that is equal to the other two areas. So the second your character walks into that area, anything that is Area 3 bad guy or Area 3 enemy will come after you as long as you're in that area. So there you go. Defining areas using if statements to be able to create different areas inside a navigational mesh without having to use the null modifiers. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.